I have rules for men. They're just funny. They're not that serious. Like, you don't eat soup in public. You don't cross your legs. And you don't drink from a straw. And one of the reasons you don't drink from a straw is because the way your lips purse. It's very effeminate. And his excuse was, well, I was drinking a milkshake. Again, you shouldn't be drinking a milkshake. Milkshakes are for kids.
Jesse Waters is one of the worst people on television. He is smug. He is annoying. He is gross. And he's just not all that entertaining. His shtick falls so flat. And it did just the other day when he decided to go on this whole rant, this whole rampage against Tim Walz that really ended with him being humiliated by Walz on his own show. Because this argument that he was trying to make attacking Tim Walz's masculinity only blew back on him in a resurfaced clip. And in a not so great response from his colleagues, we are going to check out how Tim Walz ended up humiliating one of the worst Fox hosts out there. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way. And it really does mean a lot to me now. Before we can get into what Jesse Waters had to say about Governor Tim Walz, I want to get the context for how this all started. It was a podcast episode with Tim Walz and Gavin Newsom that I want to take a look at right here.
Yeah, Bill Clinton said it better than anyone years and years ago after shellacking. Given the choice, I'm paraphrasing, the American people will always support strong and wrong versus weak and right.
Because I saw it for me, and not that I spend much time thinking about this, and it just baffled me how much time they spent trying to attack me that I wasn't like masculine enough in their vision. Yes. Like, I would have never believed this. I saw Fox News did like a couple days because I used a straw. And I'm like, hell, man, what am I? How else do you drink a milkshake type of thing? But they focused on it obsessively, which I think, again, is their obsession, their weirdness. We buy their frame on these issues of sexuality, but their whole thing is that they spent all their time, these guys on Fox News, that Walz is gay, he's not masculine, he doesn't coach football the way he should, or doesn't. What do you think about this? I mean,
it's
this misogyny in here that's happening.
Yeah, well, but this notion of masculinity is deeply part of it. And that's one of the. I mean, I think it goes. And you can look at the reasons why we've had this sort of dialectic over the Me Too movement. We've had this dialectic even prior to the Me Too movement. This notion of fight it. This notion
I think I could kick most of their ass. I do think that if they wanted to. I know I can outrun them, but I don't know if we're going to fall into that place where we want to. Okay, we challenge you to a WWE fight here type of thing.
Counter, but it's a natural reaction. I think it's one of the reasons we're losing so many men. And again, it's multi-ethnic. It's not just white men. We're losing them. We're losing them to these guys online. We're losing them people that I'm bringing on this podcast as well. That's why I brought.
These are bad guys, though. These are bad guys.
But they exist, and we could deny they exist. They exist. Not only they exist, they persist, and they're actually influencing young kids every single day.
How do we push some of those guys back under a rock?
I think we have to first understand what their motivations are. I think we have to understand what they're actually doing. And
you don't think that's racism and misogyny?
I think there's a lot of that, but I don't think it's exclusively that. When you talk to a guy like Steve Bannon, he reminded me a little bit of my grandfather when he talks about working folks, and he talks about how we hollowed out the industrial core of this country. But I understand that. But so we can dismiss the notion of election denialism. We could completely dismiss what he did on January 6th, but I don't think you can dismiss what he's saying. Reminds me a lot of what Bernie Sanders was saying. Reminds me a lot of what Democrats said 20, 30 years ago. I mean, he's arguing
against Musk, right? He hates
Musk. He hates the oligarchy. He totally agrees with you on the concentration of monopolistic powers. He completely dismisses the notion that we should extend the tax cuts for corporations and the very wealthy. He thinks we should lower taxes for the middle class and wants to see increased taxes.
I can't message to misogynists. I can't message that women shouldn't have equal.
But I think if we say people are misogynists, then we're falling prey. We're in that frame. Not everybody that disagrees with us is a misogynist, even those that, but I think this notion of toxicity in masculinity needs to be separated. And I think it's been conflated. And I think we're going to have to work on that a little bit. And I think there is a
I
crisis.
think some of us scare them. I think I scare them a little bit. That's why they spend so much time on it. No, I'm serious, because I can fix a truck. They know I'm not bullshitting on this.
Yeah.
I'm not putting this in people's grill. I don't know if my identity is not hunting. My identity is not football coaching. My identity is not, a beard and a truck. I like all those things. But how did we get to this where have they figured it out that the identity piece of this is more important than the actual substance?
So what could possibly be wrong with that two leaders of the Democratic Party, two governors of two of the biggest states in the country, to Democratic states, having a conversation not only about how we combat Trump, but also how we move Democratic messaging forward, kind of looking back at this past election, which of course Tim Walz was closely involved in, and saying, how can we bring more people into our party? But that's not how Jesse Waters saw it. He saw it as, I guess, an example of how Tim Walz isn't masculine. I don't know. He talks about this stuff all the time in the weirdest way, and what he had to say right here was so dumb. We're going to get into how all of it backfired. But first, take a look.
But Tim says he's a man's man, even if he uses a straw.
It just baffled me how much time they spent trying to attack me that I wasn't masculine enough in their vision. Like, I would have never believed this. I saw Fox News did a couple days because I used a straw. And I'm like, hell, man, how else do you drink a milkshake type of thing? But they focused on it obsessively, which I think, again, is their obsession, their weirdness. I think I could kick most of their ass. I do think that if they wanted to. I know I can outrun them, but I don't know if we're going to fall into that place where we want to, okay, we challenge you to a WWE fight here.
Patrick Bet-David's the founder of Valuetainment. Do you ever drink a milkshake and drink it with a straw?
Jesse, I'm sitting here laughing. I'm sorry. I got to tell you, I've just been cracking up the entire time. But let me put it to you this way.
This is the thing that they try to do on the right. Jesse Waters is wearing makeup on national TV, talking about how masculinity is when you don't drink a milkshake or drink a straw. There's nothing wrong with a dude wearing makeup, or a guy being in front of the camera talking about news. I really hope there's not anything wrong with that. But there's certainly something wrong with Jesse Waters and being Jesse Waters and his idea of what masculinity is, especially if it's so tied up in if you use a straw or not, especially because this clip exists.
Joe Biden's Thanksgiving trip to Nantucket. He polar plunged, did a little Black Friday shopping with Hunter, and he called one of our correspondents stupid. And we're willing to look past that little outburst, but some things we just can't let slide. Joe Biden used a straw. Now, if you've seen me on The Five or on Prime Time, you know I recommend that all men refrain from using straws. It's unbecoming. The way a man's lips purse. The size of the straw is just too dainty. The way your fingers clasp on it. No, come on. Straws are for women and little kids.
You're sipping like a Dunkin' or a Starbucks drink out of a straw. Also, again, nothing wrong with straw. Nothing wrong with sipping. Nothing wrong with a dude enjoying a tasty Starbucks drink. Maybe a little too much sugar. Happens to the best of us. Sometimes, those iced coffees, those frappuccinos turn into basically a milkshake. But what I will say, Jesse, is the posture, this lean over. That's an issue that I don't like, that I'll raise a problem with enjoying a sweet treat every once in a while, having a cold cup of coffee. That's fine. The hunch on national television, I know I have bad posture sometimes because I'm tall, but you look ridiculous, Jesse. You have no right to be talking about Tim Walz because you sound so stupid. And I love how this just kind of backfired on him. First of all, Walz was playing well. Walz was talking about how ridiculous Fox sounds in a clip that Fox was playing. So Jesse just allowed himself to be humiliated and called out for how stupid he looks on his own show. And then this has just turned into like a complete backfiring chain of events, as now Jesse Waters continues to bring this up and get called out for it. But listen to him try to talk about masculinity even more.
Well, his nickname's Tampon. No real man has a nickname like that. Well, that's what it is. I'm sorry. I didn't make it up. He wants them in boys' bathrooms. Real men don't talk about how they can beat other guys up. They don't talk about how masculine they are. Maybe if you're a professional fighter, you can do that, but I don't know people that do that, and I know a lot of tough guys, like this guy, Greg Gutfeld. I have rules for men. They're just funny. They're not that serious. Like, you don't eat soup in public. You don't cross your legs, and you don't drink from a straw. And one of the reasons you don't drink from a straw is because the way your lips purse. It's very effeminate. And his excuse was, well, I was drinking a milkshake. Again, you shouldn't be drinking a milkshake. Milkshakes are for kids.
They're delicious.
Now,
this dude is he's just so weird, and he doesn't know what he's talking about. You're on Fox, man. Like, I don't want to get into like a whole conversation of like what masculinity is and like the idea of the right, because they have no real concept of what it means to care about service and empathy and protection of vulnerable groups, which you would think would be what a real sign of positive masculinity would be, to care about people, to have empathy, to use whatever power you have to protect rather than to persecute, which is like what Jesse Waters gets paid to do. But more than anything, he just sounds strange and is accomplishing nothing. Like, you're kind of just a nothing, Jesse. You don't really do anything. You just make people upset at 8 and fear monger. I don't know how proud you are of that. Your mom certainly isn't. Do we want to get into the Jesse Waters mom stuff? Do we really want to start investigating people's personal lives, Jesse? No, I don't think so. If you want to listen to someone who really does have a positive vision for the world, though, we can check out Tim Walz right here.
We're both retired school teachers.
Yes.
And in the 70s, when I was teaching school, a lot of the kids, or some of our kids, didn't have good food for breakfast. So as teachers, the teachers were bringing in packages, as any teacher in here would know, of Cheerios or something and some fruit. Every kid on that playground I knew was getting a good meal, and I always felt so secure about that. Now I'm terrified because those little stinkers don't learn anything if they're hungry.
How did we ever get into the position that we thought charging for lunch? We didn't charge for electricity. We didn't charge for the chairs. That's on property tax. Why did we ever get it and differentiate that, divide some of the kids? Because I can't imagine what it was like I do know magic because it was my friends and I saw it as a teacher. Kids who had to be ashamed that their account ran out and they had to turn around. So I said in Minnesota, in part of that, we're just doing everything, free breakfast and lunch for every kid, no problem. Like, you don't charge. And message, here's the thing, they said it right. Guess what happened? Our absentee rates went down and our achievement scores went up. So in the long run, so let's say you're just a cold, grinchy person and you don't care if they eat or not. We have to sell it to them that it actually saves us money, just like early childhood. For every tax dollar we invest in early childhood, we get $12 back. So appeal to the economics.
Now that is someone that I would tune into. That is someone I'd want to listen to. That is someone presenting a positive vision of what men in public service should be doing. It's not attacking a trans woman for having a beer like Jesse Waters does, or trying to talk over Jessica Tarloff when she presents real points. And while we're on the topic of Jesse Waters, I have some thoughts. This guy is just so sticky. Can we be real that Jesse Waters doesn't believe a thing that he says? He's always like, I don't know, he's got a bad smile. I think he's got a problem with his lips. It's fine. We don't actually need to get into all of the Jesse Waters talk. This video would be way too long if we did. But all I'll say is be more like Tim Walz in a world full of Jesse Waters. Be more like Tim Walz, and we're going to try to do that on the show every single day, especially because Tim Walz also himself is kind of a hater like me. He hates Fox. We saw in that clip, he hates Elon. I respect the hell out of that Tim Walz is just constantly mocking the people he doesn't like, even in the final speech he gave right after the campaign. he was still mocking J.D. Vance. I remember I tweeted that, even in, kind of I don't want to call it a low moment for Tim Walz, but certainly a disappointing one. After the presidential election did not go the way we wanted it to. He was still mocking that clip of J.D. Vance being unable to order donuts in public. So I'm behind you, Tim Walz. Even if you drink out of a straw, whatever the hell. That means these people are so weird, and we're going to keep calling out their weirdness every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. Until next time, I'll see you soon.